Continue with our talk, obviously, about the death of Robin Williams, and we all know the story now of what happened and what he was going through.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, certainly to a point. Some details have been released. Lou Ripley is with the Crisis Intervention and Suicide Prevention Center of BC. And you know, when the story first came out, there were a lot of tweets saying, if you need help, call this number or that number, and all sorts of crisis lines. But what do you do, first of all, when you get phone calls, I guess, how do you counsel someone?
Well, we're a volunteer-based organization, and the training that we do with the community is not necessarily to counsel someone to become better. We deal with people in the moment of a suicidal thought or a suicidal crisis. And our advice to people is to do your best to stay calm.
Right.
And to meet the person where they're at and be with the person. And our volunteers and the community members we train are encouraged to get some skills around that so that they can be with someone and have a conversation about suicide, because that's what people often need.
Yeah. Is it when you get to that particular point when someone's in crisis, is it that we really want to reach people long before that and realize that the one thing about it is, you know, when we talk about this a lot about mental health is people think, well, just, you know, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
You know, you're not that depressed.
Yeah.
But it really is a debilitating thing that people are dealing with.
And certainly if you catch somebody when suicidal thoughts are just emerging and help that person be able to talk about that and recognize that and not let them become overwhelming, that's prevention, right? That's
right.
Preventing it from getting to a place where they're in a crisis.
What do you say? I mean, you're the volunteers at the crisis line. They have a lot of training.
Yeah.
They put a lot of hours into that. What about, you know, someone like Steve and myself? We don't have any training in that regard. So if we know someone we think is going through this, what do we do?
Well, you can come and get training from we offer a variety of trainings at the Crisis Center for community members. You know, really what our teaching is, we teach some skills, but the essence of it is do your best to try and remain calm. And do your best to try not to treat this person as a freak. If someone's struggling with many of us struggle with suicide. 6% of the population each year in British Columbia struggle with suicide. That's a lot of people. That's like over 200,000 people.
Wow.
So this is something that you're not alone.
Yeah.
People struggle and get through this all the time.
It doesn't mean that they're actually making attempts, but they're having
thoughts.
Yes.
And it's not, they're not alone.
You're not alone. Yeah, many of us do.
Is it all carried around mental illness, or is it stress? Is it, you know, financial problems? Is it things like that, or is it a combination of everything?
I think it's certainly, I mean, definitely there's a link between people who struggle with mental health issues on a broad continuum. I'm not talking about diagnoses.
Right, sure.
And a link to suicide. It's suicidal thoughts. But it's very complex, and it's different for every person. It's different, but definitely linked to mental health broadly.
How do you approach someone who you think may be in that position? Because as Sophie said, we're not professionals, but a lot of things is if you know they may be embarrassed, or that person. How do you approach them in a way that shows that you're there to help, you're not there to embarrass them? Or
that's a really important piece, that people are embarrassed. And so it's remembering that people are embarrassed, people are ashamed of struggling. They, you know, our culture broadly, and all our cultures see it as a weakness often, and so it's to remember that and to try and be able to have a conversation with them about it. It's hard. It's not easy, but that's what helps, is to be able to talk about it in an open way.
Should you be saying, I've gone through stuff myself, or?
Usually the best practice is to ask about suicide and allow the person to talk and to say, this is important. We need to get you connected to someone who can help us deal with this. That's our messaging to people, and that's what our training is you know, you obviously, who knows who can fix it. Often people who are struggling with suicide, sometimes they don't want to talk to a professional, though. They don't want to, they see that as psychoanalyzing, they're afraid. So the training that we do is trying to help everyday people be able to connect people who are struggling with suicide together with help, right?
Should offices, workplaces, you know, we have a plan here, like I'm sure a lot of people do, where we can, if you need help, you can phone, there's a number and but is that something that people should do in offices and talk openly about it in the office?
I would certainly encourage it, definitely. Talk openly about it. Get rid of the stigma. Let people who are struggling with suicide, all of the people who are struggling with suicide, feel that there's hope and it's okay, and this too can pass.
Right.
Because it does. It can.
I mean, we're all mourning the loss of Robin Williams, but the fact that it's opening up the conversation, is that a helpful thing?
Yeah, I think, it's funny, I said, Robin, we have a loss and it's devastating, and at the same time, it's these devastating things sometimes that open up the potential for others to be helped. And so I have to see it like that. And certainly, I'm not trying to say there's a magic bullet. There is no magic bullet, and people do take their lives. And sometimes what we need to do is talk about it to help those who are left
behind.
Yeah.
All right. I'm not sure if we have the phone numbers that might be appropriate, but we do have your website there. It's crisiscenter.bc.ca, so definitely check that out.
Yeah, and definitely, there's a 1-800 suicide line, a provincial line, 1-800-784-2433. That is a priority line across BC that goes to crisis lines where there's volunteers who are willing to talk to people.
Now, we should mention real quick, I know we're out of time, but you want to mention that you're looking for volunteers to run the phones?
Oh yeah, we're always looking for volunteers, both in our community education programs and in our distress line programs. And we also have a free suicide awareness session where you can kind of come and learn a little bit what all of this is about at the Vancouver Public Library on World Suicide Prevention Day, which is September 10th.
Okay.
Yeah, Wednesday, September 10th.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for offering this opportunity.
Well, thank you for coming in.
Yeah, thanks.
Lou Ripley with the Crisis Intervention and Suicide Prevention Center of BC, and again, it's 1-800-SUICIDE.
Caitlin?
Thank you very much, guys.